Hello, good afternoon. It's me again to update you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to let the church know we don't know how privileged we are till we don't have it. So last Monday, I had a call from a doctor, a Ghanaian doctor, who had been exposed to a patient and had been told to self-isolate and was in an absolute panic. And someone had told her I gave a talk in church and had explained it. And I said, I'll send you the link and you can read everything. And she was screaming. This is a doctor who has been trained, who knows all the science. And she said, she said it in Chi, which was even more dramatic, but I really don't need anything on any website. I just need a simple explanation of what it means to me, like I'm told you told your church. And I just thought, thank you so much, Pastor Kingsley, for the opportunity for the church to hear this. Yes. So we are privileged. And for me, that's also been a learning because this is not my everyday work. So because Pastor Kingsley had asked me to talk to you, I read up, I study, I go to meetings, and I take information that would help people. And it was also able to help someone. And so it's a symbiotic relationship. Okay, so where are we now? This is not West Norwood. This is Oasishouse, so I think you've loaded the wrong thing. But anyway, we'll just go through quickly because West Norwood had to have a more detailed update. So just go on because I think I've spoken to the church about general things. Next slide. Next slide. We know about the coronavirus. We talked about the way it's spread by droplets. Go on. So we know that we want to break the transmission. We know the symptoms. We spoke about it last week. That's why I'm rushing through. We've talked about the ease of spread, the number of people who get infected. Go on. Go on. We've talked about breaking the cycle of transmission. We've talked about the symptoms. The characteristic thing about COVID is the shortness of breath. Next slide. Right, this I thought was worth looking at. The majority of infections are mild. This picture tells it all. So last week I told you that 80 people, if we take 100 people, about 80 people will get a mild infection. That still remains. This is of the hundreds of thousands. This is based on data from both China and Italy, and I think Singapore too. So about 80 people will have a mild infection. And no, there was another WhatsApp this week about if you stay at home, 50% of your lungs would be fibrosed and all sorts of stories. That's not true. It's mild, nothing happens, okay? And then about 13.8%. So if you take about 14 people will need hospital care, may need hospital care, and a few more will need intensive care. So that's still the way the infection is going. Move on. Okay, so I talked about the 4 phases. Contain, delay. We are now in the delay phase. As at yesterday, we had 21 deaths, and I'm sure it's changed by now. The public risk is now set at high, and so I want to focus on talking about what that means for us. Next slide. Okay, just to highlight that, it's just been a week. A week ago, I stood here. There had been 2 deaths. We had 206 confirmed. Within the week, we've now had 1,140 concerned and confirmed and 21 deaths. It's now a pandemic. Our risk has been raised to high. Next slide. The message is still the same. Stop the transmission. It's passed by droplet transmission. That means it's the hand washing with soap and water. It avoids touching your face. It's avoiding close contact with people who are unwell. Next slide. We talked about hand washing. Don't splash and dash. What did we say we will do? We will wash our hands very well with soap and water. We won't fight for gel. We would wash our hands very well with soap and water. The soap breaks down the envelope that contains the virus. And that is quite important. When you use the hand gel, you are drying up the virus. Scientifically, they say they are inactivating it, okay? And so it can come alive again, right? So when you use the soap and water, the example I used in the tree service was when we fry plantain and we are washing the frying pan, we put extra soap in it to cut the grease out. And that's what you do when you put soap on your hands to wash it. You are cutting the envelope out and cutting the grease out to make nonsense of the virus within it. And then the vigorous washing also physically pushes the virus away. So that's quite important, the washing of the soap and the water. And then my daughter also pointed out, I didn't teach you to wash your thumbs. The thumbs are important. So make sure when you're washing your hands, remember, it was like that, the thumbs, the pad, the back of the hands, your wrist, and then you rinse. You are singing happy birthday, whatever song that you like. Next song. Next slide. It's when you wash your hands. When you come in contact with anything, you are going to eat, before you put your hands in your mouth, remember the reasoning behind it is you want to get rid of the germ so it doesn't come in contact with you. So you touch a contaminated surface, wash your hands. Before you eat, wash your hands. You touch rubbish, wash your hands. Next slide. Go on. We talked about this last week. Go on. I think we talked about keeping ourselves and others safe. I'm conscious there are a few people who were not here last week, so I'm just reiterating what we've learned. But go on. I just want to touch on what delay means for us. Go on. This is what I wanted to get to. So if we don't do anything and we keep going on, you see the peak of the curve, the first curve. There will be a lot that's uncontrolled. There'll be a lot of people. If you see the horizontal line that goes across in terms of the healthcare system's capacity, that's intensive care beds. What we found with the people who have needed hospital care and who need intensive care is they need ventilators. So basically, your lung is tired, and then they give you a ventilator. So something is mechanically breathing for you. Sometimes your heart needs to be supported, and so they give you that machine to help you. They may give you drugs. Sometimes your kidney packs up, and they may need to help you. They may dialyze you. The challenge we have is that normally a lot of people don't need this at the same time. So the health system doesn't have enough to take care of everyone who would potentially need it. Remember, we said this is a new virus. So most of us haven't come in contact with it. And so most of us have the potential to get it. Now, even if 80% of us have a mild sickness and 20% need some support in hospital, at the moment, flu immunization, people didn't go for it. So our hospitals are packed with people who should have gone for the flu. Next year, remember to go for your flu jab if you are in the at-risk group. But so we've got a lot of flu cases in the hospital now. And so the healthcare system will be overwhelmed. So what we are trying to do now is to push it such that not too many people are exposed at the same time. Okay? And then it's gradual. We talk about it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So it's going to be, it's not going to end at the end of March. I'm not scaring you. I'm just giving you the knowledge you need to make a plan for yourself, okay? It's not to scare you, but it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not going to be over in the next couple of weeks. It's going to take us time to get over it and to support the people who need care, who need the support. So we want to spread it out. At the moment, you know there is a challenge when someone is sending you an email at 2 a.m. and then wants a response by 6 a.m. People are working round the clock to make sure that they can build the capacity. They are talking, all the hospitals are talking about surge capacity, getting things right at the right place, identifying how patients are going to be treated, how patients are going to be moved so that the general healthcare system doesn't fall apart. It's primary through secondary to tertiary through quaternary services. So it's a big operation that has been put together. And people are really working hard at it. Okay, so that's why they've done this. Next slide. So again, what is social distancing? We're talking about reducing contact with people. Why? Because now previously, we were scanning, we started scanning at the airport in January. So when you see, people talk about it, it's a bit amusing. There's a time for everything. The time for taking temperature at the airport was in January. It's long gone. This is not the time for taking temperature at the airport. It really doesn't do anything. It really doesn't help, okay? So we've gone past that milestone. It's now within the community. And so we have to try and stop the spread within the community. So we talk about social distancing. And that is why we are doing it, because we want to stop the spread within the community. So it's really been there from the beginning. When I first had this discussion in, when was it? February. We talked about the fact that if someone is unwell, keep your distance. And make sure people are not sneezing at you and that kind of thing. So that is all part of social distancing. Next slide. It's a range of measures. So part of it is just keep your distance. Then you go on to stop shaking hands and, stop hugging, that kind of personal distance. And then through to, you have the border controls, and we don't want people coming in. So it's a whole range of measures. And what they've done is, they've done all sorts of, so you hear on the news a lot about them talking about modeling. What is the modeling telling you? So what they've done is they've said, if we close schools, what happens? How much of the infection will we stop? If we stop transport, what happens? It's not just the infection. It's also the social disruption, okay? It's the fact that if you stop schools, a lot of the grandparents are the ones looking after the children, okay? We'll be relying on them for childcare. They are the at-risk group. So if the children are going to go to the grandchildren and the grandparents, and the grandparents are going to get unwell, and they're going to need ICU beds, which we are not at the stage where we can provide extra ICU beds, how have you helped the system? So it does seem to be madness, but there is a science, people are thinking about it, and not just the immediate societal impact. And then, like I've also said, there is going to be significant disruption. And the question is, at what point in time do you encourage people to do all these extreme social distancing things? And are you expecting people to stay at home, cooped up in their houses for 2 months? Or are you going to do it and then let them come out, and then there's another outbreak? When China did it, what has happened is they've built up hospitals. They've built hospitals. They've built up their ICU capacity in weeks. We don't have the facilities to build up hospitals. So China is now looking to see if, when we relax our social distancing measures, will the outbreak come up again because people are meeting? We don't have that luxury. So here what they've talked about, they keep talking about, is the fact that they want the science to drive the policies. And so with the benefit of hindsight, we can all be, what do we call it, passenger drivers, and say, oh, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. But, they've weighed this, and at this point, this is what they feel is right, knowing their population. And that's why they've taken those steps. Having said that, it's changing. So if you see the graph, this really struck me. The first case in Italy was on the 31st. The first death was around the 22nd, 23rd February. But look at where we are now. And this is in the rich area in Italy. The northern part is where they've got all the resources, where the rich, the famous, the good and the great are. So just imagine where we don't have the resources, what is going to happen. Okay? So there's quite a lot of healthcare resources that needs to be mobilized at this point. Next slide. I think we're almost... Yeah, so what is involved? Each and every one of us has a responsibility. I keep saying, fight your fears with a plan. We haven't been giving a spirit of fear. We taught up all the verses, and God hasn't given us a spirit of fear and be anxious for nothing. But we don't practicalize it. You need knowledge. Your people perish, we perish for lack of knowledge. We're being given the knowledge. What is your plan? What is the plan for your family? At a point in time, we will all have to socially, distance ourselves. It's going to happen, okay? What is your plan for your family? You should have a plan. If someone in your house is unwell, how are you going to isolate that person? How are you going to manage that person? Do you have enough food at any point in time? I think for us, the Ghanaian community, well, I should speak for myself. Our food needs are very little. We've got you can eat rice water in the morning, rice and oil in the afternoon. Very little, no flowering of it. Very basics. And we've got to, some of us have individuals that you have to prepare them. We have to think of the wider society and how we're going to do it. We're a church community. They know we are Christians by our love. Okay? How have we thought about how we are going to support those who are vulnerable amongst us, the elderly especially? Yes? Like I said, there's going to be significant disruption to our lives. And we've just got to cope with it and stop whining. Okay? It's life. Loneliness. It doesn't mean hit the WhatsApp. I won't talk about the WhatsApp clips. But it means that think about how you are going to maintain your mental health. It's be transformed by renewing your mind. Okay? Read proper things. There are loads of great WhatsApp clips. I don't think we all know WhatsApp clips. YouTube, sermons. Look, the services are online. Catch up with them. There's music. When I'm low, I have a go-to worship YouTube clip that keeps me going. I go, I prepare. It's basic. It doesn't cost money. You've just got to do it. Just have that mindset. And don't be paralyzed by fear and just chant Bible verses without any meaning to yourself. Practicalize your faith, okay? I'm not saying the Bible verses are not helpful, but practicalize your faith, okay? I think we've got a last slide. Yeah. Pastor Kingsley said last week, 72,000 people have so far recovered. And that is not taughted about. It's not something that is going to kill everybody. It's not. And so don't keep calling death. It's not coming. Don't invite it in. Last slide. Right. So it's still the same hand washing. It's practicing social distancing. And there are different aspects of it that I'm sure Pastor will talk to us about. And it's looking out for the vulnerable and the elderly in our community. Thank you.
Amen. You can do better for Jesus. We thank God for the life of our dear sister, Dr. Diane. Very comprehensive explanation of the challenge we are facing as a community and as a nation. And we honor God that we have professions like this in the church. And she is a consultant on public health. So everything she has said is so relevant. And it has become very necessary that we as a church also take some measures, as she rightly said. Do some basic things which calls for common sense. And it is being suggested on the news. You know how the press is pressing this home. And hopefully we may hear something officially from the government maybe tomorrow. We don't know what that is going to be, but it seems like they may ban some of the public gatherings. And some are saying that the numbers will be reduced. Anything above 500 will be curtailed, and any numbering more than 500 will not be allowed. We don't know yet. But should that happen, we believe that as a church, we will be ready for that. If that should happen, we'll get you informed during the week. If church service is not banned at all, but the government says that you can't have 500 people under the same roof at the same time, we believe the best way forward will be to have a double service. And in that service also, as she rightly said, to do social distancing, which means that we'll fill the room, but with space in between. Are you hearing me? We'll fill it, but with enough space in between. Okay? And should it come to that the government will ban the 500 people meeting, we look at the statistics, and with our children every Sunday, we're almost 600. And the question then was, of course, maybe 450 can meet here, and then the children can be in another place. We want to seriously become sensible and pay attention to the, mind the gap. So we will put the gap there ourselves, so that just to protect one another. Okay? So we will get you informed in the course of the week. But if church is to be closed, any social gathering, if the government, I know the government won't go that way, but peradventure, if they do, what that would mean is that every Sunday, same time, worship with Trinity Baptist Church online. About 5-7 of us will come here every Sunday. We'll make sure that we'll have about 2 of the band, 2 of them. Then about 2 worship leaders, one standing there, one standing there. And then the camera team. And then, here we have cameras that rotates by itself. Where are they? That one there is a camera behind the screen. Okay? So it takes the pictures by itself. So if the government should say that, we want to assure you we are ready. Okay? And but what we would want to plead with you is that if that happens, every 10 a.m., be by your TV. Our online programming is such that you can get it online on your TV. Okay? If you have a smart TV, you can have it on your TV and watch. Young people, am I right? Okay? So that is how we are planning to do this. But if it's 500, the cap is placed on 500 to allow social distancing. We will still have to divide ourselves. Okay. And the first service will be 9 to 11. And then there will be Sunday school in smaller groups, scattered all over the place. Then the second service will be, what was it at? 12 to 2 o'clock. Okay. Am I clear? Would that be okay? But I want to know by show of hands, how many of you would like to come for the 9 a.m. service? Okay. Excellent. How many of you would like to come for the 12 o'clock service? Wow. Evenly divided. So that's excellent. The reason we are doing that is that you don't change your mind, and then everybody shows up at the 12 o'clock service. Then we have the same problem again, So we felt, let's test the pulse and see how this is going to be. Thank you very much. One last item, then we will proceed with the Thanksgiving. We are all aware of the fact that we are entering into a redevelopment. Today, pardon us for the time. It is very, very necessary. A redevelopment at West Norwood. The London Baptist Property Board have agreed to the head of terms, and now the contract is being prepared. In the preparation of the contract, our attention has been drawn by the restrictions that the council, Lambeth Council, desires or seeks to impose on the church when it is completed and built. Remember that 64 flats are going to be built there at West Norwood with the church beneath. So what they are trying to do is to put in so many restrictions. And we are all aware of the fact that in this country, neighbors are very powerful. Here, we have restrictions. We are allowed